My first event in Vegas, we had about 100 people attend the first event. A lot of them were hedge fund managers, real estate guys, because that was my background. One of them asked me, Raul, why are you doing this? Why do you want to build this mastermind? And I said, because I want to raise money. I want to take advantage of the market. I want to do this. He goes, all right, I'm all the money that you need. Because have access to billions of dollars. Whatever money that you need, I got you. Now, why are you really doing it? And that's when I realized that the reason I was doing it is because I wanted to help other men not go through the pain that I went through.
Welcome back to another episode of the Beyond the Wealth podcast. I'm your host, Andres Sanchez, and today I am joined by Raul Velasquez. He's a mindset coach for men, the founder of the Edge 100 Challenge, and he's also the author of The King's Code. We're going to talk a lot today about how he's helping other men from a mentorship standpoint, whether it's business or personal life, and understand what his business model is, how he's been successful, and a little bit about his story. Raul, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, man.
Thank you, Andres. Thank you. Excited to share some insights with the audience. It'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I think we do have a very male-dominated audience, so I think an episode like this will be very valuable. And I know a lot of the people that you work with have businesses, are CEOs, founders, and that's primarily what our audience is as well. So I'm really excited to have you come on here and share some of the stuff you're doing in these workshops and these boot camps and a lot of the really good stuff that you're doing. So I think it's going to be a really relevant conversation.
Awesome.
Let's jump right into it. I would love to understand why mentorship and coaching was something that you wanted to do.
So at the beginning, Andres, I didn't want to be a coach. I always saw coaches as they couldn't do, so therefore they wanted to teach, right? So I didn't want to be associated with the coaching industry, with the personal development industry. I built a brand based on a mastermind type of experience. That's what's called the next level experience, because I was looking to be around other like-minded people to be able to grow. At that point, I was running a real estate company. I was looking to raise capital and was right at the beginning, at the end of the down market, the beginning of the wave. So it was 2013. So I remember having my first event in Vegas. So I had about 100 people attend the first event. A lot of them were hedge fund managers, real estate guys, because that was my background. And then one of them asked me, Raul, why are you doing this? Why do you want to build this mastermind? And I said, because I want to raise money. I want to take advantage of the market. I want to do this. He goes, all right, I'm all the money that you need, because I have access to billions of dollars. Whatever money that you need, I got you. Now, why are you really doing it? And that's when I realized that the reason I was doing it is because I wanted to help other men not go through the pain that I went through. Because in those conversations that I had, it wasn't just about money. It was about, Raul, how did you overcome depression? How did you overcome the down market? How did you overcome all the things that I was talking about that I thought people, or I would say men, didn't want to talk about? That's exactly the pain points that they needed to hear. So I guess the background is I did it because I went through a lot of pain in my life. I went through depression. I was drinking every single day at one point in my life, even though I had money in the bank, even though I was successful, even though people around me thought that, I had the perfect marriage, the perfect business. Sometimes success could be a curse. And that's why I was able to relate to the men that come to our program.
Yeah. And so I always think it's important. I always like to highlight struggle when I talk to founders, because it's not something that's widely talked about. And I think it does resonate with a lot of people. So for you in that time when you were struggling, when you were going through these ups and downs, I'd love for you to share a little bit more about that, because I think it will help people who maybe are in that position or are stuck in that space realize where they're at, and also let their guard down a little bit as we continue to talk about this stuff.
Absolutely, man. So back in 2008, I was on the top of my game in real estate. I had millions of dollars in real estate. I had over 100 people working for me. And when the market crashed, I didn't know how to adapt. I didn't have people around me that will advise me, right? Because I thought I was invincible. It's very similar to what's going on right now in the market. That's why, a part of me is excited. Part of me is a little bit skeptical, because there's a lot of people who didn't make it through 2008. So in 2008, when the market crashed, all my assets diminished to the point that I wasn't able to pay for my mortgage in my house. And for me, that was the toughest thing, to tell my wife that eventually we're going to lose the house, to tell my wife that I fucked up, I messed up, right? So that's the turnaround. When my wife looked at me and said, Raul, you got us into this, and I know that you're smart enough to get us out of it. So if one thing that I want to get across is the partners that you choose, the women that you choose, the people around you, that's going to either make you or break you. Because if I didn't have that, Andres, I wouldn't be here. Because there's a lot of men who didn't make it. There was a lot of men who were very wealthy that committed suicide because they didn't have the right partner, right? So it took me 6 months after she said that to me to actually figure things out, because I just listened to that voice in my head to figure things out. I'm going to figure shit out. So I went to personal development seminars. I started reading books. I started looking at opportunities. And you know what they said? In moments of chaos, there's always opportunities. So that's when I found opportunity to actually buy distressed assets, manage distressed assets. When everybody was losing their properties, my company was buying those properties. Imagine, I was losing some properties in one side, and I was buying properties in the other side. Like, the bankers hated me because, Raul, how are you doing this? Like, we're foreclosing on your properties, but then you're picking this up at a discount. I said, well, that's called business. That's called like owning your mistakes. So that was a good 5 to 6 year run, but that's where depression hit me. Because even though I went through that, and I looking back now I understand why the soldiers come back from war and they get depressed. It's because there's no more battle, there's no more fight, right? So they don't know how to come back to themselves. That's why I spent 5 years building, rebuilding, and creating my company. That when it was peacetime, I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know who I was. So that's when I started drinking every single day. That's when I had this pain in my stomach, and that I couldn't even go to sleep. I used to drink a half a bottle of tequila every single night just so I could go to sleep, just so I could take that pain away. So I know now, but I didn't know at the end that pain was the pain of not fulfilling my purpose. That pain was the pain of doing something just for money, because that's what real estate was for me. I was just doing it for the money. And I didn't have an impact. I wasn't impacting people. Actually, it was the opposite. I was kicking people out of their homes. I mean, here I am. I'm trying to, I'm an inspirational guy. I want to help people, but then I'm seeing people at the lowest of their life, and I'm actually not able to help. So that's what was eating me alive. And if you only do things for money, eventually it's going to catch up to you.
Yeah, I've had over 100 conversations with founders in these podcasts, and it's a very common theme of like, if you're doing things for the sole purpose of getting rich, making money, and there's no other driver, that is typically a path to an unhappy or an unfulfilled future, which leads to things like exactly what we were talking about: drinking, depression. Even though you've achieved success, achieved what you thought you wanted, but if there was no real purpose behind it, it's very hard to be excited. So I love that you mentioned that. I want
And I
to,
know that
yeah.
people are probably listening to us like, hey, yeah, you have money, but what you have to be depressed about? Like, I coach men right now that are millionaires and billionaires, and the problems are the same. There's the gift and the curse. If you feel that you're not good enough, doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank account, if you don't figure that thing out, it's always going to hunt you. And what I see with men is that we sabotage our business, we sabotage our marriage. Why? Because we're trying to fill up that void that unless we do the inner work cannot be filled. And that's what happened to me. Like, the more money I made, the less satisfied I was, right? And thank God that I had a strong woman behind me that was able to hold the space for me, because I know that some men just rather go to Vegas and, have affairs and then just come home and play that role. But then I realized at that moment, because my kids were young, like, I didn't want my kids to know a man that what I call is a sedated warrior. That's what I became. I became that sedated warrior. The sedated warrior is the one that looks like a warrior, looks like a badass, plays a part, but inside he's full of fear, he's full of doubt, he's full of anxiety. So we sedate not to deal with the pain. So when I decided, like, I'm not going to be a sedated warrior, I need to figure my shit out. That's why I invested about $500,000 to figure out what was wrong with me. And what I discovered is that I lost my edge. I lost my edge. I lost that drive. I lost that passion. I lost that energy that I had, because I used to wake up every morning like looking forward to go to the office. Now I was waking up, I was regretting. I didn't want to go to the office. I didn't want to close deals. A lot of people maybe cannot relate to that, but just imagine, like, loving something at one point and afterwards losing the passion for it. And I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror some days. That's how bad it got. Like I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. And a lot of men that I talk to, they experience the same thing. And that's the loss of confidence. That's the loss of certainty. That's because they don't have purpose. We don't know why we do the shit that we do.
There's a lot for us to unpack there, and I have a few questions about that. But one thing I want to make sure that we go back to and highlight, because I think it's super important. It is a very common theme in a lot of successful individuals. You really pointed out how important picking a partner is in life. I want to talk a little bit more about that for you when you are talking to these men and these founders. What are you telling them to look for in a partner? What have you noticed are strong traits in some partners? Because I also agree with you that it's the most important decision you will make in your life.
So I just came back from a couples retreat, Andres. We took some of our clients with their partners, and we went to Tulum, and we had a 4-day event. And I took the men aside, and my wife took the woman aside. And the one thing that I told the men is that you are the problem, but you're also the solution, right? So we are the problem, but we're also the solution. The masculine energy feeds the feminine, and the feminine energy helps the masculine grow. So when you start looking at a partner, if you don't have a partner that wants to grow with you, that loves you the way that you are right now and wants you to keep you that way, and it's impossible for you not to change, because inevitably you're going to change. I've been married for 25 years. So I look at my wife. She's not the same as she was 25 years. I'm not the same as I was 25 years ago. So if I didn't have a partner that was open to change and evolving, and she wanted to keep me the same way that I was before, it would never work out. So when I tell my guys, a lot of them are married, I said, you have to give yourself the reason to grow. Eventually, your woman is going to be inspired for your growth. There's a great book that I want you guys to pick up, especially if you're not with a partner yet. It's called The Way of the Superior Man. The Way of the Superior Man. That book gave me the insight of why I lost my edge. It's because I became a pleaser. I became a yes man when it comes to my family. I became a yes man actually in business because I lost my certainty. The moment that you have purpose, you have to learn how to say no to certain things. And even sometimes you have to say no to your partner. Why? Because she will respect you more that you're doing your thing and you're fulfilling your purpose than just pleasing and bending for her. Because eventually in the back of her mind, she's not going to trust you.
Wow. That is very, very strong stuff there. And I think it's always interesting to learn about these different mindsets and how thinking about basic things every day in just a little bit of a different lens can be this complete eye-opener. So I think a lot of what you said there can be that for people listening, for some of these founders, like knowing that it's okay for you to say no to certain things when it comes to your partner, because you have to work, because that's what you get excited about. That's what your purpose is important. And I know a lot of people struggle with it. So I love calling it out.
And one thing that will add to that, and I think it's important. See, if you're at the beginning of a relationship, you have the luxury to have these conversations, right? Are you able to grow? Do you want to grow? But now, like some of the guys that I talked to, they've been 10 years, 15 years, 20 years married, right? So they already have a partner that's set in their ways. The biggest challenge that I see is that when men find their purpose, men are like, okay, I'm going to build this company with this 10 million, 100 million, $1 billion company. And then their partner says, no, we can't do that because, you're going to spend way too much time in your business, way too much time. So now there's resistance, right? Mm-hmm. At that moment is when you have to make a decision to give yourself the permission to do what you were born to do what you desire to do. And then figure out a way that you're actually able to do both. You can't neglect your family and build your business. But the fear of the feminine is that she's going to be left behind. And that's where, as a leader, as a man, you have to cast the vision. You have to paint the picture. The one thing that looking back, what I did really good with my wife from the beginning is I painted the picture of where we're going to be, where we're going to end up, constantly casting the vision, painting the picture. So when I lost everything, the one thing she did is she reminded me. She reminded me like, hey, remember what you said. Remember the promises. Remember the vision. Like, oh, shit, I forgot about that. Yeah, I am that guy. I have, so that's, the thing that I have with my wife is she always tells me when I forget who I am, I can always count on her to remind me of who I am. And when she forgets who she is, she can always count on me for me to help her remind her who she is. So both in partnership, you just both can't forget because then you're fucked. If
Yeah.
you both forget that you're going to the deep end, right? At least
Yeah.
one person at the one point has said, hey, I know who you are. And I'm here to help you remember who you are.
I love it. So let's talk a little bit about the experience side of the business, the mentorships, master classes. Um, you started that, you wanted to teach these men. Walk me through what an experience looks like for one of your clients when they sign up and are part of these events.
So the great thing now that we have is that we have multiple entry points. But when I started, and it was 10 years ago, there was only one entry point. You spend 5 days with me in a boot camp style event, right? So I did a boot camp style experience for the first 2 years, almost every single month. And I believe that got me to figure out the pieces of what gives a man his edge and what kills his edge, right? So in those 5 days at the beginning when I started, it was more like a lab. Like I was like a mad scientist. I would throw this to the guys and the guys would like react to this. Like, oh, this worked. This didn't work. So we've done over 60 events now. We got it down to a science that our bootcamp experiences are 3.5 days. And every single man that comes to those events, they tell you that's the best thing that ever done in their lives outside, their honeymoon. The honeymoon is the first, this is like the second, best thing of the experience, right? Because it's a custom experience. We don't have a cookie cutter approach. We coach the guys before they come to the event. We already know what their patterns are. We know what makes them tick. We understand their personalities. And then these events just create an experience that is very unique. So what we'll say the experience looks is similar to getting a custom tailored suit for your personal development. When you go to the seminars and these big events, it's more like the Macy's approach, I call it, right? One size fits all. You go there and you try to medium, try to small. When you come to the next level experience is your tailor approach. This is going to fit you. And you're going to walk out of that event knowing that, oh, this was exactly what I needed. So that's the bootcamp. Now we also have the leadership summits, which I think that's a great entry point. This is where we're going to try to scale this to thousands of men. But the key to those events is the community. What I've done the last 10 years, and is I just build a strong community of men. Now we have a couple of hundred men that have gone that are active in our program, and I have about 1,000 men that have gone through our bootcamp. But right now, like the community is bought in. They know that this works. They know that proximity is power. So the promise that I tell every one of my clients is I'm going to give you 3 things. Number 1 is I'm going to give you association. That's the key thing, association. I'm going to put you in proximity of people who are not going to take from you, because that's what we avoid. That's why everybody who comes to the program, they have to be vetted. They have to have a conversation with my team just to make sure that you're not here to take. You're not here to raise money. You're not here to try to do something shady. So that's the first thing, association with men who are in leadership positions, who have a vision, and they want to sharpen their edge. So that's the one promise. The second is I'm going to give you accountability. So the one way to give you accountability is we're going to put you into a team that we actually gamify personal development, because it's not, you don't leave the boot camp, you don't leave the event, just, we hype. You leave the event with a community. You leave the boot camp with a strategy. You leave it with accountability, high level accountability, either through coaching or through your community. And the third is a simple action plan. Like I developed an app you guys could download. It's the Edge 100 app or the edge100app.com. That app has taken me millions of dollars to develop, years in the making, and it's an accountability app and a simple strategy. Every single day, you're going to input 7 habits, 7 key KPIs, 7 things that are going to help you sharpen your edge. And once you submit those 7 things on a daily basis, the app is going to give you a score. So you're going to know every single day whether you're winning or you're losing the game of life. So that becomes addictive. That becomes now something that you're doing on a daily basis, that now you're having more awareness of the things that you're not doing, or the things that you need to do, or the things that you're actually doing. So I call this sharpening your edge by 1% a day. And that's where the 100-day challenge comes in play, because I promise that you're going to do more in 100 days than you've done in a whole year by yourself. If you come to my community, if you come to our events, you're going to learn how to compound time, do more in 100 days than you've done an entire year by yourself.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned the community aspect, because I think people more than ever are looking for that. I saw a post the other day that my generation, I'm 26, so like the generation right around me as well. Um, every generation before us had three places. They had their house, they had their time with their friends, and they had the office. You were able to go to those three places, be three different people, to have three different conversations. And now it's really only two places with the lack of office time. So younger people are looking for other ways to connect with people, express themselves. And I think that's why we've seen a really big rise in community-based businesses. And I think it's the most effective, in my opinion. So I love that you have that aspect of that inside of what you're building as well. One of the things that we keep touching on that's I'm interested in hearing your answer to is what gives a man his edge.
You know, it's funny that you asked that, because I'm in the middle of writing a book that's called The Purpose Crisis. And I believe a man loses his edge when he starts to lose his sense of purpose. So what gives a man an edge is knowing that he is doing something bigger than him. So you see all these players, you look at Michael Jordan, he wasn't winning, just for himself. He was representing something. He was an African American in this game. He was like, he's put the whole race in his shoulders, saying, hey, I'm going to not just be the best basketball player, I'm going to be the best one in the world, right? So you see every single player, every single athlete, every single successful man, you see that they're doing it for something bigger than them. They have a deeper purpose, a bigger purpose, right? So that's one thing, purpose. The second is, are you being guided or are you doing it on your own? So I don't know anybody who's won any championships or anything, done anything meaningful without having a mentor, without having a coach, without having counsel. That is the biggest key of somebody having an edge, is having counsel, having mentorship, having coaches that will guide them, because you don't know everything. Like, the biggest lie that we've been told is that we have to figure this out on our own, that if we ask for help, we're weak. That's the lie that we've been told as men. That's the conditioning to keep us in control. The reality is that the more you learn from other people, the better you get. And the last thing that gives a man his edge is really not necessarily what he says, but what people say about him. Is that's the legacy. It's like, what are my kids gonna say about me when I'm gone? What's my family gonna say? What are my clients gonna say about me when I'm gone? So all those three things combined is like legacy, being guided and having purpose, man. You combine those three things and you have an edge.
I love it. And then when you're talking to these men and they're going through the program, what's the most common, and maybe there isn't one, but what's the most common challenge that a lot of them face?
Not enough. Every single man feels like they're not doing enough. They're not a good enough father, good enough husband, doing enough in business. I was coaching one of the guys who's worth $100 million. And I didn't know this then, but we built a relationship now that we did a documentary around him. You could look up in my YouTube channel, his documentary. But he actually had already all his plans to commit suicide before coming to my event. And his thing was like, if this event that I'm doing with this crazy Latin guy doesn't work out, I'm done. Right?
A lot of pressure on you without even knowing.
God, I didn't know this because I wouldn't fit in. I don't want that pressure, man. I don't want the responsibility, right? So I didn't know this then. I know it now. But once he came to the boot camp, he said that I'm worth $100 million and I'm a shitty father, I'm a shitty husband, and all this. We were able to help him see that all this conditioning, all the not enoughness didn't come from him. It came from his upbringing. It came from his father, right? And his father, he learned that from his father. So it's a generational curse, the not enoughness. But the not enoughness was also a gift, because he became, $100 million worth of real estate because of that drive of not feeling enough. The curse is when you don't know how to appreciate it, and then it becomes a curse. So now, fast forward is now, he's worth $1 billion. He's speaking all over the world. He wrote a book I think the book is called Not Enoughness, actually. Not Enoughness, The Gift of the Curse. As a matter of fact, tomorrow he's speaking in Poland because he's Polish to 10,000 men about mental health.
Oh, wow.
So, that's when I say every man that I help has the capacity to impact thousands of lives, I'm not bullshitting because I know the capacity that every man has. And if you're listening to this, don't discount yourself. Well, this is, how can I, who am I to impact thousands of lives? That's what I thought. Like, I'm a real estate guy. Who am I to impact thousands of lives? Who am I to help other people? You have to give yourself the permission to allow God to use you. That's the common denominator. Men don't have purpose. They don't think that they're enough, and they don't have something bigger than them. They don't have God in their lives, so they don't have something that could guide them. Because why? We've been taught to be self-made. We've been taught just to figure things out on our own. I mean, you listen to all these guys on the internet, like, man, you could do it yourself. No, it's bullshit. You can't do it yourself. You need a tribe. You need guidance. You need people. You need to have counsel. Then you could execute at a higher level.
You mentioned there that these men need to be more willing to give themselves to God and let them lead. I'd love for you to elaborate a little more on that.
So I was born. I was raised Catholic in Ecuador. I'm from Ecuador. When I came to the United States, I was 11 years old. My parents joined the Church of the Seventh-day Adventists. So if you know anything about Seventh-day Adventists, very strict, very religious. So like they keep the Sabbath. The closest thing I think the religion to being Jewish, because they keep the Sabbath, right? So in high school, I hated the religion because I couldn't go out Friday nights or Saturday. Like all my friends were partying Friday nights. I'm like stuck at home, doing Bible study, right? But that gave me a good foundation of reading the Bible, of connecting with God. So I became eventually an elder in the church. But that's when I went through my depression, and I realized that sometimes the church doesn't do a good job dealing with the darkness, dealing with the depression. So when I went to my pastor, when I went for help, all they told me was to pray, just to pray, right? So I felt like at that point I needed something more. So that's when I went into finding out like other experiences outside my religion to actually figure out what's going on, right? And I found that meditation helped me deal with some of the issues that I was dealing with. So through meditation practices, through like dealing with what I call facing your darkness, I was able to heal that version of me that felt like I wasn't enough. That felt like I wasn't good enough. So now I find God through my meditation. We actually are part of a church right now, but I don't look at religion as like you could find God without religion, but God is everywhere. Guys, if you just quiet your mind, like I've learned in my app, there's a meditation practice that I call the daily ritual, and every single day, my job is to deepen the connection with God and lessen the connection with who I think I am. Like the Bible passage says that you must become less, and God is going to become more. The more that you uplift and you believe that you are being guided, the less you're going to need of yourself. So it's a process, man. It's a journey. And my kids would never push religion to my kids. We never told me you have to go to church, you have to do this. And they're 18, 19. And every single day they call me, Dad, can we pray? Dad, can we pray? Like they're very connected with God just because of the way that we've experienced God in different places.
That's, and I think that's great too for the older entrepreneurs that are listening here. Like you not forcing that on your kids has most likely the reason why that relationship is a lot stronger and they're more willing to do it. Because I know a lot of kids suffer from like their parents make them do too much or make them get involved in things that they don't want to. Typically, if you let them, they'll find their way and end up coming back.
And also by leading by example, leading by example. My kids have always seen me like do my meditations and pray and meditate and connect with God and talk about my experiences. So I think a lot of people, what they do is we do as I say, not as I do, right? Yeah, we go to church on Sunday, but then all of a sudden, like we become the devil, for 6 days, right? So the game in my mind with my kids was let me show them my darkness and my light, so they could see that I'm not a perfect man, but I'm a man that's willing to be shaped by the fire, that's willing to be shaped by the struggles.
Yeah. I want to give a freebie to the people that are still listening and still here with us in this episode. If somebody's listening right now and is feeling motivated and they wanted to go and change 3 things or work on 3 things about themselves that you think would make a big impact, what would those 3 things be?
The first thing I will say is make a list of the wins that you have in your life. Make a list of all the things that's working. Because I know we could just beat ourselves down so much that we forget about what are the blessings that we have, where are we winning? And it could be a small one, because you can't build momentum unless you have something to build momentum on. So the first step is that look at your life and look at how blessed you are. Like if you live in America, man, that's winning right there. Okay. Even as crazy as it is going on right now, that's, go to another part of the world and you see that you definitely don't want to be there. Right. So write down, make a list of all the things that you're winning on. Right. That's called gratitude. What are you grateful for? The second is, what are the things that excite you? What are you excited about? What are you looking forward to? What are some of the things that maybe that's the vision. Like you have to create that pull before you create the push. But, start with gratitude. What are the things that you're grateful for? Where are you winning? Then start looking at what excites you. What do you want to do? I want you to start dreaming and casting the vision. And then bring it back. And the third thing is, what must you do to get there? What must you do to close the gap? And I don't want you to get overwhelmed because maybe your vision is too big. Just what must you do this week, this month, this quarter? Chunk it down to 100 days. I love the concept of 100 days, Andres, because people get excited every single, December 31st. Oh, I'm going to have a new year resolution. Awesome. And then 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, they're the same person as they were before, right? 100 days is long enough to stretch you, but short enough to actually see the changes, right? So I challenge you to cast the vision and then create a 100-day plan, a 30-day plan, and a weekly plan. Chunk it down. Because you have to create a pull. But see, I started with gratitude. Because you can't create a plan unless you know what you're grateful for. That's the beginning of making changes. What are you grateful for? And the brain cannot be stressed and grateful at the same time. So the first thing is gratitude. The second is creating the pull. What's pulling you? What excites you? What do you want to accomplish? And the third is, what's the push? Because the push is the work. The push is you getting dirty. The push is maybe you need to lose some weight. Maybe you need to sharpen your skill. Maybe you need to have the conversation with your parents. Maybe you have the conversation with your employees. Whatever it is, that is the push. And your job is to look at that list every single day for the next 100 days. And just add to that list, what's the push? Because you have to have every single day something that pulls you and something that pushes you. So you have the pull and the push, man. You're going to be able to sharpen your edge.
I love it. And I challenge somebody listening or watching right now, wherever you're getting this episode, to do this and reach back out and let Raul know how this impacted you. I think it's very powerful. And I think it's something that all of the younger entrepreneurs that are listening should take advantage of. I know we're getting the time here. One last thing I want to ask you before we wrap up, and I ask this to every single guest at the end of every episode. If you could go and talk to the 18-year-old Raul, what would be the number one piece of advice you'd give yourself?
Be patient. Be patient. Like you're going to impact people's lives, and this is not just for the youngest Raul. I'm talking to every single man here. You're stronger than what you think. If you just allow yourself and give yourself the permission to become the leader, you will do what you see in your mind, what you feel in your heart, you're going to do. That vision that God put in your life is not bullshit. That feeling that you have, that fire, your job is to continue to ignite it every single day. Because the older you get, the more chances you're going to have to turn the fire off and just become somebody that says, well, I could have, should have, but didn't. Doesn't matter how old you are. If the fire is there, your job is to ignite that fire and continue to burn through it. So, and for every single one of you guys, if you follow me on social media, my handle is Raul the Edge. If you send me a DM, I'll send you a link to listen to my audiobook for free, The King's Code. I believe that book is going to help a lot of men understand why they are where they are in life. The King's Code book.
Awesome. Thank you. And all of Raul's social media and different assets will be linked in the description of wherever you're watching this episode. Raul, I want to say thank you so much for sitting down here with us and pouring in and giving a lot of knowledge to our community and our viewers. I appreciate you being an open book and showing us a little bit of what happens behind the scenes when you're working with some of these high profile individuals. And this has been an absolutely amazing episode.
Awesome. My pleasure, brother. My pleasure. Anytime. Thank you.
Awesome. And thank you all for sticking with us till the end here. We will see you on the next one.